The stage lights burned bright against the darkness of the massive theater, a million eyes blinking through the glare, waiting for the next contestant. In that electric silence stood a boy, barefoot, thin, his shirt wrinkled and too big for his small shoulders. His name was Eli Navarro, a 12-year-old from the poorest neighborhood on the outskirts of town, a place where dreams usually died before they ever learned to breathe. But tonight, Eli wasn't here to beg, or to hope, he was here to sing. The judges exchanged uncertain glances when they saw him walk in with trembling hands and worn-out jeans. To them, he was just another kid chasing a fantasy. But to Eli, this was everything, his one chance to change his life and his mother's, to sing not just for applause, but for survival. His voice had never been trained, but it was born out of hunger, heartache, and faith, raw and real, the kind that came only from living through pain. Eli grew up in a broken part of the city where the nights were filled with sirens instead of lullabies. His mother, Marisol, worked 3 jobs, cleaning, cooking, and sewing, to keep a roof above their heads. His father had vanished years ago, leaving only empty promises and old memories. Every evening, Eli would wait for his mother to return from work, sitting by the flickering light of their single bulb, humming tunes that helped him forget how empty their fridge was. It was on those nights, when his mother was too tired to speak, that Eli would sing softly, his voice weaving warmth through their cold, tiny home. Sometimes, neighbors would stop outside their door to listen, whispering, "That boy's voice, it feels like hope." One day, while helping his mother clean tables at a local diner, Eli heard a TV playing in the corner, an ad for America's Brightest Talent, the biggest singing competition in the country. The screen flashed golden lights, roaring crowds, and one thing that caught his attention, a massive golden buzzer, something that meant instant victory, a straight path to the finals, and a chance to be seen by millions. His heart skipped. He whispered to himself, "Maybe that's where I'm meant to be." He asked his mother if he could audition. She smiled sadly, brushing his hair back. "Baby, dreams are beautiful, but they cost more than bus fare." Eli didn't argue. That night, he took his small box of saved coins, the ones he'd earned by singing on street corners, and counted every single one. It wasn't enough for a ticket, but it was something. And when he sang that night under the city bridge, people stopped to listen. A stranger dropped a $20 bill into his box. It felt like destiny had spoken. The day of the audition came with rain. His shoes were soaked through by the time he reached the venue, clutching a backpack with a sandwich, a photo of his mother, and his lucky charm, a broken guitar pick he'd found years ago. Security almost turned him away when they saw he didn't have proper registration papers. But a kind volunteer, Jenna, a young woman with kind eyes, noticed his trembling hands and asked, "You came all this way, didn't you?" He nodded. She smiled and said, "Hold on." A few minutes later, she slipped him a temporary pass. "Get in line, kid. Go make them listen." When Eli stepped on stage, the audience went quiet. One of the judges, Simon Legrand, a famously harsh critic, frowned and asked, "What are you singing for today, son?" Eli looked up, his eyes shining with nervous honesty. "I'm singing for my mom. She believes in me when no one else does." There was something about his voice, not just the sound, but the purity behind it, that silenced the whispers of doubt in the room. The piano started softly. Eli closed his eyes and began to sing "You Raise Me Up." His voice, fragile at first, grew stronger with every word, filling the theater with emotion so pure that even the camera seemed to hold their breath. By the second verse, the audience was on their feet. By the chorus, even Simon's stern expression began to melt. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, echoing like a prayer from the soul of a child who had seen too much pain and still chose hope. Eli's voice cracked on one line, not from weakness, but from the emotion that poured out of him. When he finished, silence hung for 3 full seconds, the kind of silence that meant everyone was too moved to speak. Then the crowd exploded into applause, tears glistening on faces everywhere. Simon stood up slowly. "Eli," he said softly, "you don't just sing, you heal." Eli blinked, unsure what to do. Another judge, Maya Torres, pressed a hand over her heart. "You remind us what music is for, to make us feel again." And before Eli could even understand what was happening, Maya reached forward and slammed her hand down on the golden buzzer. Gold confetti burst through the air like a shower of sunlight. Eli's hands flew to his face in disbelief. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down, as the crowd roared his name. Eli! 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 The stage lights shimmered like stars, and for a brief, beautiful moment, a poor boy who once sang on street corners was standing under a golden sky. The next few days felt like a dream Eli could never have imagined. Overnight, his performance went viral. Millions of people around the world watched that small, trembling boy fall to his knees under golden confetti. News channels replayed his audition with headlines like "The Voice That Broke America's Heart." Social media was flooded with messages, "You're our little miracle, Eli. Your voice made me cry. Never stop singing." But behind the smiles and fame, Eli's world was still fragile. His mother, Marisol, sat at home watching the replay on a borrowed phone, her eyes swollen with tears. She couldn't believe the world finally saw what she had always known, that her son's gift wasn't just music, it was love-made sound. Producers soon called them to fly to Los Angeles for the next round, offering to cover expenses. Eli had never been on a plane before. He spent the night before packing his few clothes into a borrowed suitcase, whispering prayers of gratitude for Jenna, the kind volunteer who had let him in that day. When he boarded the plane, looking out the window at the clouds below, he thought, maybe this is what flying really feels like, not just in the sky, but in life. Los Angeles was a world he couldn't have dreamed up. Tall glass buildings that kissed the clouds, people rushing by in expensive suits, and food that cost more than his mother earned in a day. The production team gave him and Marisol a small hotel room near the studio. Eli spent his mornings rehearsing with professional vocal coaches, though most of them quickly realized he didn't need technical polish, his power was his heart. "Don't overtrain him," Maya, one of the judges, told them quietly. "If you teach him too much, he might lose the innocence that makes him shine." Each night, Eli would FaceTime his old neighbors, showing them the hotel room and the view from the balcony. "You made it, kid," they'd say, laughing, and Eli would smile, but deep down, he missed home. Fame was loud, but poverty had taught him peace. When the semifinals came, the theater was twice as full, the cameras brighter, and the pressure heavier. Backstage, he saw older, experienced singers warming up with confident smiles. Eli sat alone in the corner, holding his mother's hand. "Are you scared?" she asked softly. "A little," he whispered. "But I'm singing for you, so I'll be okay." She kissed his forehead, and he stepped on stage. The music began, this time, a stripped-down version of Fix You by Coldplay. His voice trembled on the first note, but when he saw his mother's face glowing from the side of the stage, everything else disappeared. His voice soared, cracked, and rebuilt itself in the same breath. When he sang the line "Lights Will Guide You Home," the crowd began to cry. The moment the final note ended, silence once again took over, then came another standing ovation, even louder than before. One judge whispered, "He doesn't just perform, he reminds us why we're alive." But behind the scene, something heavier loomed. After the show, Eli found his mother coughing in the hallway, her face pale. "Mom," he said in panic. She brushed it off, smiling weakly. "Just tired, baby." But a week later, while preparing for the finals, she collapsed. The doctors said her body was exhausted, years of overwork, little food, and stress had taken their toll. Eli sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand as tears fell silently. "You don't stop singing, okay?" she whispered. "No matter what happens, promise me that you keep sharing your light." Eli nodded through his tears. That night, when the producers offered to postpone his final performance, he shook his head. "She'd want me to sing," he said. "That's what she taught me, to be brave even when it hurts." On the night of the grand finale, Eli walked onto the stage wearing a small bracelet his mother had made from sewing thread, a reminder of home, of love, of everything he was fighting for. The crowd erupted, knowing his story, his pain, his heart. He chose to sing "You Are the Reason." The lights dimmed, a single spotlight surrounded him, and as the first notes rose from his lips, the entire world seemed to pause. There was something almost sacred about the way his voice carried through the hall. It was as if his mother's spirit was singing with him. Halfway through, his voice broke, and he whispered into the mic, "This one's for you, Mom." Tears rolled down his face, and the audience wept with him. By the end, even Simon Legrand, the hardest of all judges, had tears in his eyes. "I've judged thousands of singers," Simon said quietly, standing to clap. "But none have ever made me feel the way you just did." That night, he didn't win first place, another older contestant did, but something far more magical happened. As he stood backstage afterward, heartbroken but proud, Jenna, the volunteer who had helped him in the beginning, appeared out of nowhere, holding her phone. "Eli, you need to see this," she said. She showed him a video online. Fans around the world were sharing clips of his performance with hashtags like #EliTheGoldenHeart and #SingForHope. Donations were pouring in, not just for Eli, but for his mother's medical care, his community, and underprivileged kids who love to sing. "You've started something, Eli," Jenna whispered. "You've turned your pain into power." His tears returned, but this time they were of joy. For the first time, he understood, music wasn't just about winning, it was about healing others while healing yourself.